This is your before and after story, where your first steps towards a new life-changing career begin. Southeastern College can take you there. We offer in-demand hybrid and online programs with hands-on training, led by in-field career professionals, and career services to put you on the path to a rewarding and fulfilling future. This is where your transformation begins. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Thursday, July the 17th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's the producer. We are looking forward to speaking with you this morning on a topic of your choosing. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM. which is 86-26. So one more sleep till what? Jay's back in action to go down the home stretch here. I've got this eerie feeling there are 2 games up on the New York Yankees in the American League East. I'm not feeling it. I wish I was. But anyway, the Jays back in action tomorrow. All right, on this date, 1976, the opening ceremonies at the 1976 Summer Games in Montreal, the Olympic Summer Games. First time the Olympic Games were held in Canada. And, of course, the big star of those games was Romanian gymnast Nadia Comaneci. No gymnast had ever recorded a perfect 10 in the Olympic Games until Comaneci. And she recorded 7 at the Montreal Games, 3 gold medals. It was the first time that basketball, rowing and handball were added to the Olympic program for women. Field hockey was played on artificial turf for the first time in Olympic history. Canada won 11 medals, which doubled their count from the previous Olympics, but no gold medals. And the penultimate day, though, a guy named Greg Joy, he won a high jump silver medal, which was one of the big highlights for Team Canada. It was a widely boycotted games. People talk about 1980 in Moscow and the boycotts, but tons of nations from Africa boycotted the games. Why? Because New Zealand was touring the rugby team. The All Blacks were touring in South Africa, so they decided to boycott. The cost and debt were absolutely out of control. It took the city of Montreal decades to recover the financial losses at the Olympic Games. Closer to home, talking about the games. Congratulations to Grand Falls Windsor swimmer Nathan Luscombe. He's been named the flag bearer for the opening ceremonies for the Canada Summer Games, kicking off next month. Nathan was born with spina bifida, and swimming was a way to rehab until all of a sudden he was really good at it. And so Nathan Luscombe, who's a decorated swimmer already, that's a pretty prestigious honor to get to carry the flag into the opening ceremony. So congratulations to Nathan. All right. Everywhere you look, the scooters and electric scooters are super popular. They certainly are in my neck of the woods. And I often wonder, is just how dangerous might they be? Of course, it's a two-wheeler. It's relatively unstable. And some of those e-scooters are super quick. So now all of a sudden there's a story out there from the Canadian Institute for Health Information regarding hospitalizations as a result of falls or collisions while on a scooter or an e-scooter. There's a mishmash of regulations across the country, so no one standard go-to about how to, I was going to say police, but how to institute some regulations regarding their use. So here's some numbers regarding hospitalization. Just about 1,000 people hospitalized for scooter-related injuries during the 12-month period starting April the 1st, 2023. That's up from 810 in the same period the year prior. Half of the injuries, 498, related to a motorized e-scooter, an increase of 32% over 375 hospitalizations recorded in 22-23. All right, so some of the injuries that are being reported resulting in hospitalization are extremely severe. Brain, facial, dental trauma injuries. So whether it be hit by a car or hit by another scooter, or a scooter hit someone who's just a pedestrian or on the rollerblades, whatever the case may be. So what do? For starters, I sometimes think governments exaggerate how difficult it is to come up with some regulations. For instance, just using a helmet. You know, we all know that if you fall off your bike or your scooter or your skateboard and you hit your head on a hard surface like the road or the sidewalk, having a helmet on goes a long way to preventing traumatic brain injury. It's also the concept of just how quick these are. So, look, if parents want to buy their kids a scooter, fair enough. but it's probably worthwhile to understand just how fast they are. So a e-scooter, can go from 0 to 40 kilometers an hour in seconds. We see it in our neighborhood. Someone will get off to, navigate a bump on a sidewalk, get back on, and gone like a bullet. So it's probably worthwhile for us to try to figure out some regs here, and it's definitely worthwhile to absolutely make it mandatory to put on a helmet. And this is not nanny state stuff, because if whatever age, whatever gender, falls off one of these machines and ends up in the hospital, mean you were paying for that hospital bill, right? So those numbers are not surprising whatsoever. And of course, some of the jump is simply because of just how many more people are riding the scooters or the e-scooters. But that is a worthwhile consideration for parents. And the bulk of the injuries, young men, and the bulk of those, not wearing a helmet. So there you go. All right, let's talk ATVs. We had Rick Noser on yesterday from Avalon Trailways talking about ATV operators. Maybe check your exhaust to make sure your spark arrestor is in place and functioning, just so we can try to do our level best to not see a spark from an ATV cause wildfire. I hate to be preaching on that front, but 9 fires currently burning. Then we talk about how people use their ATV. In some maybe rural parts of the province, people have no problem with the amount of ATV use, whether it be on the roadway or whatever the case may be, and to each their own. But it's the unsupervised use of an ATV that has now got a couple of young fellas and their parents in trouble. So there was a collision in Pooch Cove involving 2 ATVs and a car. So Sunday around supper time. Just minor damage to the vehicle. Nobody was injured, thankfully, but there's 8 charges have been laid against the boys and their parents. So they were unlicensed, uninsured. The adults also face a charge of allowing operation of an off-road vehicle while unsupervised. Yeah. And that's a good thing that we're going to bring those types of charges forward, because it's a pretty dangerous little rig to operate if you're not careful and don't know what you're doing. So anyway, I thought that was worthwhile. All right, so I see SOPAC is now reporting that based on their lobbying and advocating for more money to be spent on moose fencing and brush cutting. Good. No number revealed as to exactly how much more money the province is going to put in, but if you've ever driven anywhere, including here on the Avalon Peninsula, and you are driving on the stretch of highway that has moose fencing in place that you can see from the road, it does give you that added level of comfort. It really, truly does. The first time that I experienced it, it was notable in my own mind that, wow, there's the moose fence. This is very good. And shortly after I first noticed the fence, I noticed moose standing on the other side of the fence. And then with brush cutting, and people are absolutely not wrong to say that brush cutting is an extremely important measure that the province needs to entertain more and more, because if you see the animal coming, you have a better chance of avoiding that said collision. So try to find out exactly how much more money is being put forward on that front, but that's probably a very good thing to protect the motoring public. On this one, this came directly from 2 listeners via email, and that's about how people navigate roundabouts. Around the world, roundabouts have proven to be a very effective traffic calming measure. Now, it does get some getting used to, but it also requires people to be super aware of where they are and what lane they need to be in, and to check your speed. Especially the roundabouts going into Costco, for instance, because there's a series of them, and even when people get used to navigating them, all of a sudden, that comfort level comes with increased speed. So both listeners in their emails report the exact same thing about just how quick people are trying to proceed through these roundabouts. Even though they are proven effective, still for some presents a problem. All right. Someone called yesterday about self-checkouts. And boy, oh boy, do people ever have staunch opinions on self-checkouts. It went all the way from a couple of emailers said, I will never even shop at a store that does not offer them because of the ease and not having to line up the cash and that kind of stuff. Okay, I get it. And then the other side of the coin, people saying, I will not shop in stores that have self-checkouts. Why? Because they're on the protecting jobs kind of front. So both emailers went on to talk about things like, being stopped at the door. If you've done nothing wrong, then there's no harm in stopping and producing your receipt and letting the store clerk or the security guard examine your bag or whatever you have. The other side of that coin is, hey, I don't feel like being treated like a criminal because the company has decided to scrimp and save and not hire human beings, but to put in a self-checkout. So, again, people have pretty firm opinions on whether or not they like or loathe the self-checkout, but we'll put it back out there for you if you're so inclined. All right. depending on who you are, where you are, your lot in life, people point to different things regarding the problems in society. And one of these, for me, in my opinion, is income inequality. Poverty is a big deal here, and poverty comes with a significant cost to municipalities, provincial governments, and to the federal government. The new numbers are out now about the gap between the rich and the poor. And what do you know? The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. The country is now reporting the highest and lowest income household has reached a record high for the first quarter of 2025, according to Stats Canada. Oh boy. The share of disposable income between households in the top 40% of the income distribution and the bottom 40% grew 49 percentage points in the first 3 months of this year. For the first quarter of 2025, the increase came as the highest income households gained from investments, while the lowest income households saw wages decline. It goes down to break it a little bit further. The wealth gap also increased as the top 20% of the wealth distribution accounted for 64.7% of Canadians' total net worth for the first quarter, averaging $3.3 million per household. Must be nice. The bottom 40% of the wealth distribution accounted for 3.3% of net worth, averaging $85,700 per household. Obviously, the middle class is getting carved out here pretty quickly and pretty noticeably. And people say, well, the rich people, they work hard for the money. Look, there's no way that everybody in that top income category works that much harder than people in the lower income category. Some people are born into it, and yes, some people have absolutely worked as hard as possible and got their education and created opportunities for themselves. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But that gap has significant contributions to whether it be divide in society, and the haves and have-nots has a lot to do with things like interaction with the healthcare system, success in the education system, interaction with the criminal justice system. So those numbers kind of get shrugged off by some, but they shouldn't, because they contribute to a lot of the ills and evils and, well, the ills that society experiences, but those numbers are in. And this is as per a tweet from someone on my feed here this morning. So when it was first, and I believe it was James McLeod, who was working at the Telegram at the time, he was going through access to information and petitioning the provincial government to give information about just how many people are on what would be called the sunshine list. So earning $100,000 or more. The first list was 45 pages. It's now grown to 115 pages. That's noticeable. I will say that, look, it felt nosy, but hey, I'm a taxpayer, so I want to know these things. The first time it came out in the Telegram, like most, I sat there with a ruler and kind of went down through it to see what kind of numbers we were talking about. And yes, that's an extraordinary growth in the number of people on said sunshine list. But in fairness, we don't know who some of these people are. We don't know their professional background. We don't know exactly what they do. We don't have their job description. We don't know how long they've been on the job. So some of that adds to, I guess, some of the confusion about why the list has grown so quickly. And of course, some of this will be regarding just cost of living increases, but that is a big jump from 45 pages to 115 pages. It'd be nice to know a bit more while we're talking about the economic upheaval in the country, the possibility to slow roll into a recession, as people talk about all the time. But that is worthwhile to note. On that front, people are welcoming, including Yvette Coffey at the Registered Nurses Union, the fact that the Public Accounts Committee will be able to ask questions of people like Dr. Pat Parfrey and other senior officials at Newfoundland Labrador Health Services about travel agency nurses. You know who's not included on the sunshine list? Travel agency nurses, of which we have about 250, all making well above sunshine list eligibility. So if you want to take on either of those from any angle, we can do it. All right, let's go to the water. This sort of caught me off guard this morning. Grieg Seafood ASA is selling their operations in Canada and Northern Norway to another company called Cermaq. So in this province, they came to town with some pretty lofty plans in Placentia Bay. There was even at one point the talk of the provincial government putting cash on the barrelhead to make their plans in that particular bay to come to a reality. I don't know what this means for any potential changes into the future, and there has been some aquaculture conversation since that industry came to town, as they say. So there's 110 employees working at Grieg Seafood today. They have 14 seawater licenses in Placentia Bay, and they've got a freshwater facility and offices in Marystown. So Grieg, who were poised to be maybe the biggest player in this province's aquaculture industry apparently selling off their operations, still subject to a bunch of customary closing conditions, approvals by the relevant competition authorities, which includes the provincial government, the overseer, the regulator of aquaculture. And into the commercial cod fishery, same thing, year in, year out. And here's a question for harvesters who have a license to go at the cod. This happens every year. The season will open, people will set their nets, and just to find out, or knowingly, before they even hit the water, is that the processors weren't prepared to buy. So that does result in potential revenue loss for the harvesters and, of course, their deckhands. So which is it? Do the processors tell them up front that we are not prepared to buy? The season opens on the 13th of July, and apparently tomorrow, for some areas and for some harvesters, will be their first opportunity to sell cod to the processor. So which is it? They fish not knowing whether or not they can sell it, or they're told and they fish anyway. So I'm a little bit confused. I understand that the province has a lot of authority here regarding the issuance of processing licenses and some of the caveats that may be included in said license, or parameters or requirements. So if you're a harvester and you're at the cod, help me understand that. And of course, the complaints and concerns continue to rush in regarding the recreational food fishery and the highly restricted fishery that it is. One thing based on, look, I've seen a lot of photos on social media of the cod that people are jigging and bringing in some pretty significantly huge cod. No, not everyone. People talk about high grading, which you're not allowed to do. You catch a little one, you flick it back trying to get a bigger one. But I've also seen plenty of pictures, and this annual warning, especially if you're hauling in a pretty big cod, and you have that inkling that you want to reach down to the water's edge or the surface to try to help bring the cod in. And then what happens? Lo and behold, here comes a shark. I mean, how many photos have you seen like that, where the cod is bitten in half? So don't make that your hand. So do what you need to do, whether it's a gaff on board, if you bring up a big fish or whatever, but it's just that friendly update. All right, a couple of quick ones. Still getting lots of blog activity and email concerns and analysis associated with the Upper Churchill MOU. One thing that I think we don't have a firm grasp on, I mean, it's a big deal, is the role of the Innu Nation. We know that they settled out of court with Hydro-Quebec regarding the Upper Churchill. You know, $87 million to be paid out over 16 years, and then a percentage of the earnings by Hydro-Quebec at the Upper Churchill. But remember, at the news conference, at the rooms, Premier Legault, Premier Fury, and others announcing the I'll call them details of the MOU, is that it only included a framework for Gull Island. So while we talk about did we get the best deal and the authority that Hydro-Quebec brings to the table and all the rest of it, is if one of the big plays is the possibility to develop Gull Island, is that framework seems to be nothing more than that. Now, if someone representing the Innu Nation would like to fill us in on what maybe some of their members don't know about the deal or need to be yet fully informed about what's actually on the table here. But this back and forth can go on forever. But unless the Innu Nation sign off, and it doesn't matter what you think about that type of consultation, it's guaranteed in the Constitution, so it has to happen. And remember, the Innu Nation were clear that unless they were made whole because of Muskrat Falls, what people call rate mitigation, which compromised revenue loss of about $1 billion, that there will never be a development at Gull Island. So while all these other moving parts are being considered, I don't think there's any definitive agreements unless Hydro-Quebec actually earns and wins the opportunity and the green light via consultation with the Innu Nation about Gull. So all the other things are part of it, but that might be one of the big stumbling blocks or hurdles or barriers yet to be fully understood and to be cleared. All right, last one before we get to you. It's a head scratcher and in part infuriating that a unnecessary, unjustified, tariff-based trade war has upset the international economy, the global economy. There's a reason why free trade deals became all the rage, is because they worked. The economies, it's a big world, but it's a small world at the same time. Economies are naturally intertwined, including between ourselves and the Americans. In June, the Prime Minister announced an approach to tariffs regarding steel and aluminum that was not really getting the green light from the steel and aluminum associations. So, we're talking about protecting the country from what they call dumping. steel that's manufactured or poured, say for instance Turkey or China or whatever the case may be. Now the quotas, back then in June, they were not good enough, so says these respective associations. Here's what's now been announced. Steel products from non-free trade agreement partners, Turkey, China, will see their tariff rate quota tightened to half the 2024 volumes, because prior to this announcement, it was they could import up to their 2024 volumes before there was a tariff. Now that quota has been half of the volume in 2024. Anything above that, a 50% tariff to be imposed on any of those products if you don't have a trade agreement with the country. So they're also talking about, the federal government has said a 50% tariff will apply to imports surpassing 2024 volumes, even coming from the United States and or Mexico. It's a bit of a sigh of relief. Production is down, jobs are being jeopardized in that particular industry, and that's just one. So we have no earthly idea where this is going to land, and people will talk about if Mr. Carney said he was best positioned and best poised to negotiate a trade deal with the United States, and now we're told from his mouth that any trade deal will probably still include tariffs across a variety of sectors. One comment coming in from some people who are not supporters of the Prime Minister or the Liberal Party is there additional benefit to Canadian producers to make sure they have the lion's share of the market here domestically is the industrial carbon tax and what role that plays. But that's the update on a very unpredictable world of trade, and it needn't be that way. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, we're going to kick off the show, talk about federal spending reductions. The targets are 7.5% across different departments at the federal government level. People may refer to it as austerity. Maybe jobs will be lost. Even that said, if all the targets are hit, they would still see operations and the cost of, at the federal government level, 22% over what it was just 6 years ago. We're taking your emails. It's openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. This just in, the provincial government has entered into a memorandum of understanding, one more time, with North Atlantic for the lease at Bull Arm. So I'm glad that that's actually here. I know DF Barnes probably very disappointed because they were the other company that was in the churn here to possibly take on operations, but that has happened. I'll dig in a little bit further when I get a moment. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the Ward Councillor of Ward 4 in town. That's Tom Davis. Councillor Davis, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
Late this week, busy week.
Yep, has been.
A couple of council issues, challenges, or good news perhaps. Up on Blackwood Place, there was a attached home that burnt a little while ago, and the city was after the homeowner to deal with it. It was a rental, and really slow progress there. And then the house adjacent to it, immediately attached to it, burnt. And again, we've been frustrated trying to deal with it, and the residents have been reaching out. And we just on Tuesday unanimously voted to issue a tear down order for that thing, just to let the residents in the area know that that's now going to be expedited. So hopefully they won't have to look at that eyesore. It was incredible to go up and look at it. The house that burnt recently, in between it and another home, was this burnt out house that birds could fly into. And anyways, it's amazing. Some of the landlords out there have got some incredibly unsafe and just not fair to the residents to have to live in that kind of area and look at that kind of stuff. So anyway, that one hopefully is not going to be standing much longer.
Good news.
Yeah, it is good news. The fire ban, and I know that St. John's Regional Fire Department has stopped issuing bans, and when you go on the fire map, which now everybody needs to do, it's all blacked out, which is a little bit of a challenge for me, because if you click on your region, you can actually see what the fire warning is. And say on the west coast of Newfoundland, it's low to moderate. So a lot of those people, because of the resources being expended and because of the risks in other areas, they don't realize the risks they're in. But if you look on the northeast Avalon portion, it's actually extreme. Other than the south coast of Newfoundland, we actually have the highest fire warning. It's as high as it goes, is extreme. So, one of the downsides to the way where they black it out is that residents don't really know necessarily, obviously, how perilous it is. So, extreme, again, is as high as it goes. So, I mean, if you throw a cigarette butt out, which is one of my biggest concerns, cigarette butts, even ATVs, that if you're going through the mud, that mud can drop off when it's superheated and it can be a source of fire. Obviously, there's no open fires allowed, but it's really a bad situation. And when you look at the people in Chance Harbor, what they're looking at in the different areas. I mean, it can happen so quickly. And a little while ago, Mount Terrace had a bit of a close call. And our resources, there's only so many resources, and these wildfires, they move so quickly, and the wind can be so high. So just a really strong message to residents. This is not to be taken lightly, obviously, but also to make the residents of St. John's realize that it's actually extreme here. So please, everybody who's listening, spread the word. We really, really have to be careful.
Absolutely. A bit of personal responsibility is going to go a long way.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take the hat off here now, and I want to talk a little bit about what the Prime Minister is doing, more specifically to trying to bring it back to the province. But basically mirroring probably what Jean Chrétien did when he was Prime Minister, and also say the Stephen Harper government, where they recognized the peerlessness of the situation when it comes to our financial situation, but also with the change in the way the global economies are working means that it's even more important to get your financial house in order. And, there's a lot carved out of the federal government. I mean, they basically said they're not going to touch transfer payments either to the provinces or even to individuals. They're not going to touch the farmer care. They're not going to, so really they're whittling away at what possibly they can even go after. And on the other side of the ledger, they're talking about spending all this money on defense. So it's a real mixed message, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach this, because right now they're just looking for money, and we know there's money to be found, but is it going to be real money when they've carved out over 50% of their spending out of even being touched? So we'll see how it goes, but I want to really bring it back to the province, and I know you indicated if the feds achieve their goals of 7.5%, they'll still have increased their spending by 22%. Here in the province, if you go back to 2019, 2020, which is really kind of the last time we had good financial statements, really, because COVID kind of fooled things upside down a little bit. $8.3 billion back in 2019, the province was spending. That was our expenses on our budget. Last year we have our up-to-date statements for, we spent close to $10 billion, which is an increase of around 20%. However, this year we're projected to spend $11 billion, might be higher, the way that we're spending money on healthcare facilities and all that stuff. So that's a 32.5% increase in spending from 2019. And that's not sustainable in a place that really population is only marginally growing, and from an economic point of view, obviously oil royalties are dropping, and different revenues. There's no real amazing things happening here that aren't always kind of consistently happening. You got mines coming on stream, but you have mines coming off stream.
There was actually an increase in oil-related revenue last year.
Yeah, the price of oil had gone up a lot, but production was way down, and ultimately that's really the main factor you're relying on, and also the American dollar appreciated a lot against the Canadian dollar. That's a big gain for us. But again, it's barring Bay and Nord being developed, our production is dropping off, and it's not to be doom and gloom, but it's just to shine a light on our finances. The feds have racked up an incredible amount of debt, but per capita the province has done way more. So we're going into an election, and I don't really hear the kind of talk. And Mark Carney is very in tune with what's happening globally, economically, and how it's going to impact Canadians. And what happens to Central Canada impacts what happens to Newfoundland and Labrador, obviously. And we need to, at the very least, be marrying them to some point and be talking about fiscal restraint and seeing how that trickles down. That I really think that, and then educate the population so that they realize the impacts of borrowing money and the long-term impacts. And, spend that time doing it. And we have an election campaign coming up, so I'm really hoping that the three parties, I'm not sure the NDP will go there, but the two main Conservatives and Liberals will have a go at that, because it's not a blank check, and there's consequences, and those checks have to be paid at some point, and I'd really like to see it. One thing that was interesting for me, as a city councillor, so I want to bring it down another level, because again, municipal election coming up, and I know that across the province there's all municipal elections. when I looked at how much the federal spending had gone up, 28 or 29%, and how much the province had gone up, 32%, I thought, well, I wonder how the city relatively looks. And it was very interesting, because although I believe we've got this challenge of the property taxes, the property assessments going up on average 7%, and the City of St. John's has a great map center, and you can go on there. You can click on individual properties. You don't know who owns them, but you can see last year and this year's assessments, and you can see how much your property has gone up. And you see, I've gone through and looked through the ward and seen how much the property has gone up, and you can find places that have gone up 30%, which I can't imagine how devastating that will be on their tax bill, and places have gone up 3 or 4%, but on average it's 7%. But since 2019, the city spending expenses has gone up 14.8%, and relatively speaking, that's way more responsible than what the province and the feds have done, and also given our limited ability to, we can't borrow other than for capital works. I think that's a big limiting factor. You have got to look the residents in the face and ask for the money because you need it. And I think that's, although the Liberals I think they really believed they were going to do balanced budget legislation, but I think the politics of it was a challenge because they haven't brought the people along with them. But, in the case of the city, I do believe that spending has to be an issue. And I encourage people running to talk about it, and I encourage the residents to reach out to all of the existing councillors and mayor, of course, but also to ask people at the door, because it's amazing. There's a lot of people who are doing really well, and you talked about it with the wealth inequality. And a lot of times the people who are doing well are the ones who probably are most connected to a lot of the people who are running. And the only real time that the people aren't doing so well, they can really connect, is at election time. That's your time really for your voice to be heard. And the apathy and the what can I do, and the boiling frog or boiling lobster mentality is, it's not doing anybody any good, because you can see what happens in the province and the feds. They just keep spending, they keep borrowing, and then they resign, and then they're gone, and the legacy they leave for future generations is debt and unsustainable economies. So again, I encourage people to be part of the solution.
Fair enough, Tom. I've got to get off to the break, that's all, but I appreciate your time this morning.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Paul Toomey. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
Very well. How about you?
Not too bad at all. Paddy, for a change this morning, I'm not talking about the Eating Disorder Foundation, which I think I usually am when I'm calling here. I just wanted to make this message is probably directed more to the people of the Placentia area, and also anybody who's lived, grown up, and played sports in the Placentia area. Back late last year, myself and one of the guys that I played ball with years ago out in the Dunville area realized that there wasn't anything to recognize the great athletes that have come out of the Placentia area, or anything to really encourage the kids of today to aspire to be recognized for their contribution to sports. So we approached, myself and my good friend, lifelong friend, Leo Quilty, approached the Placentia Town Council about the idea of developing a sports hall of fame in the Placentia area. They readily agreed, and we've been working on the process now for a number of months. We recently incorporated a not-for-profit company to help organize and run the operation called the Placentia Area Sports Hall of Fame Incorporated. So that's now set up, and we're in the process of trying to get a board of directors in place. And obviously, I don't live in the area anymore. Leo doesn't live in the area. But we want to continue to support this process and hopefully get to a first induction ceremony sometime in 2026. But we need a board of directors that comes from the area. So we recently put out a request through the town for people to consider who have an interest in sports in the area or even an interest in business or just seeing this project develop to reach out and consider joining the board of directors. And the reason I'm calling this morning is to appeal to those folks that we've set a deadline, an initial deadline of July 25th, that if you're interested in becoming a member of the board of directors or even working on one of the subcommittees that will be established for this venture, if you could send a short letter to me with a bio, and we'll make sure that you get considered. But the deadline we've established right now is July 25th. It can be sent to me at my email, pjtoomey@gmail.com. And we'll certainly consider every person who wants to become a part of this, what we think is a fantastic project for the area. I mean, as you probably know, because I know of your interest in sports and that, there have been a lot of great athletes, not only in softball, which is the sport we come from, but in rowing and basketball, etc., that have come out of the Placentia area. And it's time that the area start to recognize the legacy of the great sports that have come from the province.
Agree. I mean, there's some remarkable stories regarding sports on Placentia and surrounding area. Like even when you talk about rowing, you know, that famous story of walking all the way to town with the shell to participate in the Royal St. John's Regatta. And then earlier this week, story in the media, coming up on the 50th anniversary of a team from Placentia, what they call a ragtag team playing junior softball, won the national championship. So absolutely worthwhile endeavor here. Quick question. Will you have a physical space or will this be a digital Hall of Fame?
We're looking at a combination of both. Obviously, if people started producing the memorabilia that we were sure was around, we'd fill a building, let alone a room. The town of Placentia is going to dedicate an area where we will have a physical presence, but our intent is to develop that along with a digital hall that can be accessed remotely, but also if you go and you look at the physical space, you'll be able to press a button or hit a QR code, and you'll be able to get more detail on the information that's there. So the vision is for it to be a combination of both.
And like you would, because, you know, a physical space is, I think, a great addition to a digital online Hall of Fame, obviously. And there's got to be tons of memorabilia kicking around out there. So in addition to looking for people to come forward to be members of the board of directors, are you already actively trying to get some of that memorabilia on hand too, which would further bolster the possibility for the town to get outside with a physical space?
Yeah, it's certainly something we want to do. We haven't really broached that one yet. Our main objective right now is to get a board of directors in place, get committees set up, and let all those people get to work to take this vision and turn it into reality. Sounds good to me, Paul. So what do they have to do, the interested parties? Basically, all we want is send a quick note to me, just outlining your interest in being involved with a brief bio. Best way to get it to me is by my email, which is pjtoomey, THOMEY, @gmail.com. And if you forget that one, Paul at edfnl.ca will get it to me just as easily. Absolutely. Paul, good luck with it. Keep me in the loop. Yeah, I will indeed. Thanks, Paddy. Thanks, appreciate Paul. The time this morning. My pleasure. Take care. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. A quick bouquet before we get to the break, coming from a caller from yesterday. Dennis O'Keefe, you're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. How are you? Great today. Thank you. How about you? Yeah, good. Beautiful day, Paddy. I just wanted to give you a call and thank you very much, and thank Dave, VOCM, and yourself for helping locate Kate's watch 2 days ago. She got it back extremely quickly. I want to thank the Canada postman who picked it up on the road and placed it on his mailbox, and then gave me a call through a contact with the lady who saw it on the post that he made. And I want to thank whoever it was in the world in there who actually picked that watch up on the street, I would assume, and put it on the mailbox, and the rest is history. Do you know, Paddy, within 20 minutes of talking to you, I had that watch in my hand. And that is a testimony to you and Dave and the influence that you have here in Newfoundland, Labrador, and to the widespread ability of VOCM to contact people on whatever issue they might have or whatever concern they might have in the world. So I just wanted to thank everybody for such help and a really, really quick response. Just imagine, 20 minutes after I talked to you and I had that watch in my hand, I went into Kate and called out to her to come downstairs, showed her the watch. I had it hanging there in my fingers, and the expression on her face was worth $1 million.
No doubt. I'm glad it worked out. My understanding is that a Canada Post worker picked it up.
The Canada Post worker picked it up. Yeah, you're right. The Canada Post worker picked it up and placed it on the mailbox.
Great stuff. I'm really glad it worked out, Doc. I appreciate the update.
Well, I appreciate your help, buddy. Again, you and Dave, boy, you're worth $1 million.
From your mouth to the boss's ears.
Okay. Take care, buddy.
You too, Doc. All the best.
Okay. Bye.
All right, let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Chris, you're on the air.
Hey, Paddy, how are you this morning, bud?
Top shelf today, Chris. How about you?
Oh, not bad, bud, not bad.
Good.
Paddy, I'm calling. I called a couple of weeks ago. I got wind that you were off that day. I was talking about the ATV and dirt bike use here in the town of Paradise. Paddy, it's been all over the news. It's all over your news this morning about people down charged and parents getting charged, and all over Facebook they have it plastered, that it's illegal if they're underage, and the legals are unregistered and stuff like that. So saying that, Paddy, the usage here in Paradise is out of control, as it is probably in many, many towns in the province. You do what's asked of you. You call the RNC, you call the town of Paradise, you file your complaint. They tell you they're going to put extra patrols on in the area, that blah, 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 and you just keep getting fed the same thing. Now, it's not that I don't think the kids should be out having fun and being on trails on their ATVs and dirt bikes or whatever, but the on-road use, there's a solar radar sign out on Milton Road there, and I tell you, I know that these kids get up and see how fast they can get their dirt bikes and ATVs to register on this radar gun.
Of course they do.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So my question, I guess, this morning is to the RNC and to the town of Paradise, who I've spoken to on several occasions. What is your plan? What are you planning to do to stop this? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So sending letters off to the Department of Justice and calling the RNC and saying they're going to put patrol, it's not stopping the problem. It's not even curbing the problem. So what do they plan to do?
It's a good question. If you were the one crafting the plans, what is it?
Well, I've made some suggestions. There's a local gas station that these kids fuel up the bikes at every day. Why not have a little sting operation down there that when they pull up, that they go over and apprehend the people on their bikes?
Yeah, it reminds me. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Paddy.
I was just going to say, it kind of reminds me of things like, unsecured loads going to the dump. I mean, maybe just put bylaw officers at the dump. You show up with an unsecured load. We don't have to prove anything fell off. It's the rules are you have to have it secured. We give you a ticket right there and then. So your idea is a solid one. There's also a distinct role for just a bit of personal responsibility. Some of it might be just the carefree whim of being a teenager and not fully understanding what the impact is on the community at large. And then, of course, it's their parents. The parents know what their kids are at.
100%. Absolutely. And do you set a fine of like an outrageous amount? Okay, if we catch your kid, under the age of 16 on a non-licensed, unregistered vehicle, the fine starts at $10,000. Will that curb it? Will they go, maybe it's not a good idea to let Billy or Jimmy go out on his ATV, because if they get caught, I'm getting smacked with a $10,000 fine. Now that's a bit crazy, but I mean, something, Patty, I see them go now, man. There's kids out there on their scooters, little girls pushing their dog carriages, and these kids are blowing by me 80 kilometers an hour, 20 feet from them on one wheel.
Yeah, you know what might be even more impactful, and this is a suggestion from somebody else, but you can put in a number like $10,000, which increases the likelihood of that fine never getting paid. Someone suggested in the past that if the punishment was confiscation of the machine for 6 months, boys, oh boys, that would be the one that I think the parents, number one, and even the riders themselves would say, well, I don't want to miss an entire summer with my machine, so I'm going to have to watch my bobber here.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, anything is better than the solution they're providing now, which is nothing. You get told by the RNC, well, we can't chase them. I understand that.
Yeah.
You chase them, you're increasing the risk of somebody seriously getting hurt. Set up a small sting operation just inside some of these trails somewhere. When they come in, they can't run. You have a couple of officers there and a couple of MEOs in there that stop these bikes. They can't turn around because it's a narrow trail, and you got them. And then you slap the parents with a fine, or you take the bikes for, like you suggest, 6 months or something. That word will spread pretty fast, especially in a town like Paradise. But obviously the solution, and plastering it all over Facebook and the RCMP and the RNC saying, it's illegal to do it, but it's absolutely doing nothing to curb it.
We all have a pretty good idea of what's illegal. It's whether or not people give a hoot about it one way or the other. So, I mean, even if you just talk about motorized vehicles, we all know it's illegal to speed, but don't tell that to the motoring publicans in the city of St. John's, I can tell you, because people seemingly don't care. I think there's also, part of me thinks that there's a lot of rational thought that goes on when you're not behind the wheel or at the handlebars. But as soon as you turn the key and the engine starts to rev, all of a sudden, people kind of lose their marbles. They know better, but they then continue to proceed to do what they know they should not be doing. But whether they get caught up, say, for instance, in the group think, if they're a bunch of young fellas or girls riding around on their machines and one person starts to pop wheelies and take off, then it just kind of leads to that, collective hive mind where all of a sudden everyone's at it. Same thing on the roadway. You see someone speeding and they blew past you. Sorry?
Yes, absolutely. I said, we were all young and followed down that, crazy, foolish behavior when your friends are doing something silly or jumping from roof to roof at, the fisheries college or whatever it was. I grew up downtown, so, you did silly stuff.
I did. I was a dummy too, right? I was plenty mischievous and lots of things. I'm not going to talk about the world of regret or what have you, but I know full well that I have to check myself when we talk about being preachy and whatnot, because I was less than a perfect teenager. I don't mind admitting.
Oh, listen, me too. Like I say, I grew up on Gardner's Hill, so there you go. But I don't think I really ever did a lot of stuff that endangered people. My memory's not that good now. I'll be honest with you. I'm getting a bit long in the tooth here, but what I want to get back to though is what are the plans for these guys to try to curb this, behavior? Like I say, by standing there wagging your finger at them, you're absolutely doing nothing. They're laughing at you. They're sticking their finger up to you. Is there a solution? Come up with a solution. We're coming into a municipal election time here now soon in the town of Paradise. Great question to be asking at the door when these people are knocking at the door. What are your plans to curb the ATV use here in the town of Paradise?
Fair question. And you're absolutely not alone in having that one on the tip of tongue. I appreciate the time this morning, Chris. Thanks for doing it.
No problem, Pat. Take care, man.
You too, man. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
It's a fair concern. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some communities that people don't care. Maybe some more rural parts of the province where it's just a go-to. Being on the bike is just day-to-day operations. One more before we get to the news. Line number 5. Rod, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. How are you doing?
Doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Could be better days, but it is what it is.
What's happening?
Hey, Patty, yesterday I was in Grand Falls. I was at City Tire. I phoned them, and I was also at Walmart and Dominion grocery store. I lost my wedding band yesterday, so I'm hoping that if anyone sees it, can either turn it in, if it's at Walmart, turn it into customer service, or in Dominion, turn it in there at their customer service, or they could call me, Patty, at 709-672-7130. It would be nice to get this wedding band back. The wife and I have been married for 46 years, and I would like to be able to get it back. There will be a small reward, Patty, offered if anyone finds it.
And, of course, it has a ton of meaning and sentiment to you and not so much for whoever picked it up. So please do indeed give us a call. I'll keep your number on hand, Rod, and if we hear from someone, we'll make sure we get it back to you.
Great. So that was in Grand Falls.
Yes, sir.
Not down in St. John's. So to your Grand Falls listeners and that, please. It was very heartbreaking when I called the wife yesterday and let her know that I lost it. I was pretty near in tears and that over that. So.
Well, let's hope for a positive outcome. Fingers crossed that we can help reunite you with your wedding band.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Patty.
You're welcome, Rod. Good luck.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we're talking harm reduction, ultrasounds, Habitat for Humanity on Grand Falls, Windsor. Aaron Butler is also in the queue, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, Tina Olivero. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for having me so much today.
No problem.
Beautiful day. So today I'm here to clear up a few things about what's really going on in Newfoundland and Labrador when it comes to addiction and crime and the chaos that we're seeing in our communities right now. We keep hearing terms like harm reduction, low barrier housing, but let's be honest, this is an important conversation because most people don't know exactly what that means and how it has a direct impact on the crime that we see in our communities right now. So that's what I'm hoping to clear up. Is that okay?
How do you mean clear it up?
Well, I guess explain what's actually going on with the harm reduction models and the low barrier shelters.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. So what harm reduction actually means is supporting people in addiction. So we're giving them crack pipes, needles, free booze, and in other places of Canada, even opioids, right? And they call that harm reduction. Here in Newfoundland, we do give out free alcohol with taxpayers' money. We do give out crack pipes and needles to shoot up toxic drugs with. And yet, we don't have money for detox and rehab. So if someone wants to choose sobriety, they can't actually get in. You can get a crack pipe before you can get into rehab, for example. That's wrong. So if people can't get help, but we're managing addiction under the low barrier harm reduction model, that's going to perpetuate a crisis of addiction in our community, which in turn perpetuates a crisis of crime in our community, and that's what we're seeing. So fundamentally, underneath what's happening, the baseline root cause is harm reduction and low barrier shelters. Now let's look at low barrier shelters for a minute. That's a place where it doesn't matter if you're using drugs, you can stay there. So it's a pillow to stay at night, and if you're using drugs, that's fine. So that all sounds great, sounds compassionate, and people, use drugs around the surrounding areas, and we're seeing a lot of the fallout of that scenario right now. So, for example, when my son was in a low barrier shelter on the Marchant Road, they were smoking crack in a driveway, as an example. We're seeing it outside the gathering place right now, where people are high, they're drunk, disturbing communities. They're even defecating on people's houses. So there's a lot of fallout as a result of that. So if we have nothing but harm reduction and low barrier shelters, there's a huge problem. And this is the part I want to clear up. Most people don't realize that 90% of the provincial healthcare budget, 95% of the healthcare budget, and the housing budget goes towards harm reduction and low barrier shelter. So in other words, we're funding that scenario over detox, we're funding it over rehab, we're funding it over long-term sobriety.
But so Tina, that's just not true though. 95% of the healthcare budget is spent on harm reduction.
On harm reduction models, yes. And when it comes to the Department of Addiction and mental health and addiction, that is correct, yes.
You just said the healthcare budget. The healthcare budget is $4 billion.
Sorry, the mental health and addictions budget and the housing budget for dealing with people who are, have mental health and addiction. So let me clarify that.
Okay, no, that's important. Look, no one's going to argue that we should expand opportunities and places for detox and then very quickly into rehabilitation, as opposed to lucky enough to get into detox, then the long wait list to get into rehab. What's the likelihood of spiraling back into your addiction? Extremely high. But harm reduction,
for sure.
Harm reduction does, in many areas, actually work. So the conversation for me is, what are we doing now? What are the options? So if we just put aside detox and rehab, which I agree with you 100%, that's the question is, what do we do different? Which is, you talk about getting a clean needle. The fact of the matter is, people in the death throes of addiction just don't make good decisions. So if it's not a clean needle, it's going to be a dirty needle. So things like safe needle exchange, I don't know why anyone has a real problem with that, because they're going to use and they're going to share needles. So if that keeps me out of the hospital with hepatitis or HIV or whatever the case may be, then that's something I'm willing to put my tax dollars into. So let me ask you the question. Currently, what we do, and once again, leave aside detox and rehab, what do we do now, and what should we do?
That all sounds great. It sounds compassionate, Patty. But if all of our funds are going towards harm reduction, where's the money for sobriety? Right now, I get calls, 2-3 calls a day, from people who are begging for sobriety. Not people who, this is not forced care, forced treatment, or anything like that. These are people asking to get their lives back. They're sick and tired of the cycle of addiction. The only option they have is going back to a low barrier shelter. That's not going to work. Getting a clean needle is not going to work. I'm talking about the people who want sobriety, who have nowhere to go, who don't have the infrastructure. If we live in a society where you can get a crack pipe before you can actually get help for sobriety, there's a problem, and we're sitting in the aftermath of that right now. So we need on-demand detox. We need on-demand rehab. We need on-demand sober living homes long-term for people to actually get well, not people forced into treatment, people who actually are begging, asking for that. Because if you're that person right now, you're excluded by the simple fact that the only option you have is to go into low-barrier shelters. That's wrong. Our budgets have to be redirected so that all roads lead to recovery. And even if you are a low barrier shelter, you should still be offering the option for people to go to recovery and making that available to them. But it's not available. It's not available as an option in our province. I think we'd all like to see that as an option. So at the very least, 50% of our budget, at the very least, for mental health and addictions and housing should be going to sober solutions first. On-demand detox, on-demand rehab, sober living homes. We don't have that. Why don't we have that? It's crazy to think that we're going to fix this.
A couple of things. I mean, I've already agreed in full about detox and rehab. And the low barrier emergency shelter situation, the first place I would start, just personally my opinion, is I would change it from the current model of paying a private landlord to operate said facility, because that private landlord does not have it in their business model necessarily to add things like access to detox and rehab. But if it was the province running it properly with less cost and options for detox and rehab as part of low barrier shelters, I think we'd have a better shot, because the current model just doesn't work. I think we're the only province in the country that does it this way, and it's been proven time and time again where people would rather live on the street than live in one of these shelters. That speaks volumes to me. So I would start there, to be honest, because you can implement programs if the province operates it all under one roof, as opposed to what we have now. This disconnected, peppered around different parts of the province through different entities and different charities and different not-for-profits and the public healthcare system. You can put a lot of things under one roof if you really commit yourself to it.
I think that's an excellent idea, and if we did that, we would be like Alberta, which is the only province right now with overdoses declining. Why? Because they have a plethora of sober living homes. They have on-demand detox, early diagnostics for people with mental health issues. These variables have to be in place, but it's not rocket science. It's early intervention, on-demand detox and rehab, long-term sober living homes. That's what we need. And if the government, I've been lobbying government for 2 years to get this in place. We've submitted proposals. We've had, rallies. We've done it all. And it's still nowhere to be seen as of yet. So we're getting together as a province, having a province-wide rally on September 11th from 12 to 2. We have people all over the province that are standing for this, and at the same time we're all speaking up and saying we want our taxpayers to pay for recovery homes before we pay for supplies to use drugs. We want on-demand detox before we pay for people to continue to live in trap houses, beat them up, and then us have to pay for them again as taxpayers. That's what we're standing for. I guess my message today is understand what we're really paying for, because most of our budget is going to harm reduction, low barrier shelters. We need to revamp that whole thing, pull it back and say recovery first, sobriety first for all the people who choose it. Then we may have a fighting chance. I would, in reference to Alberta, I think there's a fair question to be asked about the numbers, how they report them in Alberta, to be honest with you, because there's a big sentiment out there that thinks with government policy shift to try to prove it to be a success, and an overnight success, I would say, when we're talking about an extremely complicated problem, government policy, regardless, even if we adopt everything you said this morning, that doesn't mean we're going to see an overnight shift in the number of overdose deaths and or people's behavior and or addictions, because it takes time for everything to work, whether it be on the individual level or the public policy level. So, and Alberta's also talking about forced treatment, which is an important part of the conversation, I think, and it's not what we're talking about here, and I'm not accusing you of talking about it, but Alberta is an interesting case study insofar as government policy announced one day and the next day all of a sudden things are much better. Not so sure that's how the real world operates. Well, we work with Earl Thiessen. He's the executive director of Oxford House, who runs 27 sober homes there. He's our mentor. He's also on our board, and he advises us exactly how this could work. And we've submitted proposals to the government to, put that exact model in place. Small sober homes, peer-led by people who have actually gone through it, people who choose sobriety with all kinds of, infrastructure to support that person to succeeding. They have very, very high rates of success there for men and women, anywhere between 60 and 80%, which is unprecedented. Those are the facts. Those are the figures. It works. So unless we start implementing it, whether you want to question Alberta and their numbers or not, the overdoses are going down. They have sober living homes in place. When someone asks for one, when someone calls me, I'm fighting to get them into detox. And then once they get out, they get hit by a car. Or, if they're in psychosis, they're smoking crack, in crack psychosis, burning down their parents' house or stabbing their parents. This is the gruesome details we're dealing with right now. The fact that our money is going towards all of that and not sober homes, recovery, and detox is criminal, in my view. Personally, I'm interested in what works.
If it works, count me in. It's as simple as that, and I don't care whose idea it is. I don't care which political party implements it. If it works, I am 100% full-throated support. Tina, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for calling.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Where am I going here? Dave? Dave's busy. I'll go to line number 1. Brenda, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning. That's a bad phone line, is it, Dave? Yeah, Brenda, I have to put you on hold. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to Erin Butler. She's with Habitat for Humanity on Grand Falls, Windsor. Hi, Erin. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Oh, I'm grand. It's a lovely day out there.
It is. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just calling in today to let everybody in the central region of our province know that Habitat for Humanity has recently broken ground on a new build in Grand Falls, Windsor.
Fantastic. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we will be building a duplex on Riverview Road in Grand Falls, Windsor. So we are currently have our expression of interest application open for 2 new families to become part of our affordable homeownership program.
This is a very fundamental, from the beginning kind of question, but how does Habitat for Humanity work insofar as funding and the application process for families, those types of things? Just walk through the bare bones, because I think people know what it is, but maybe don't know how it works.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. So the Affordable Homeownership Program is actually a mortgage program. So there's a lot of misconception out there around Habitat for Humanity that we give away homes. But this is actually a program for lower income working families to be able to achieve home ownership in a way that is, outside of those traditional ways, like going to the bank and getting their mortgage and things of that nature. So it's a multi-step application process. The first thing that people need to do is go to our website, which is www.habitatnl.ca/homeownership. And that's where you're going to find our expression of interest form. So what the expression of interest form does is it's just a very quick, 2-pager around some very basic info. So we have 3 main criteria for the families that come into our program. One being ability to pay an affordable mortgage. So our mortgages are affordable in that they are no more than 30% of a family's gross annual income. So we do have income bands that are determined, of course, through the CRA. So our income bands for this build range between $35,000 a year and $75,000 a year. So if a family falls within that and they can pay a mortgage, they would have that, the first box checked off. The second one is willing. Sorry, I got a little bit of a tickle in my throat there. Willingness to partner with Habitat. So what that is Habitat works in true partnership with families. So part of the initial phases of our partnership agreements with families is that they do 500 hours of volunteer work. So here in the metro region, that really looks like, doing a lot of work at the Restore, some work on your own home, things of that nature. It's going to look a little bit different out in Grand Falls because of course, we don't have a Restore, so we'll be reaching out to, community agencies in different places where families can partner. And then the third would be need. So, it's need for a new home. So maybe it's, that the home that you're living in now is in, unfit condition. Maybe it's overcrowded. Maybe you're living in an unsafe neighborhood. Maybe you're paying too much rent. So if you go through our expression of interest and you're answering the questions and you fit within those boxes and send it in, families would then, after that, that whole assessment process is over for the expression of interest, I will then be sending out long form applications. So the long form application goes much more in depth into the criteria of the program. There's going to be a lot more financial information because, of course, it is a mortgage program. There are also things like references, some background stuff, some credit checks, and then once we get through that piece, it goes to our family selection committee. We have a chat with them, narrow our selections down even further. And at that point, there's a home visit and interviews and things of that nature before we make the final recommendation to the board of directors around the families that we believe would be successful in our homes.
So as a mortgage-based program, traditionally the threshold when we talk about affordability is 30% of your household income. But one of the barriers for people to get into a mortgage these days is the down payment. And some of the boxes people have to check insofar as their ability to pay a higher mortgage if and when interest rates change, all those things. So is there a down payment portion of this mortgage-based program?
There is no down payment.
Figured, yeah.
So that's one of the really big draws of the program. So currently we are working with a dual mortgage model. So there is no down payment, and our first mortgage is held with the Newfoundland and Labrador Credit Union. That mortgage does hold an interest, below market interest rate, and then the second mortgage is held with Habitat for Humanity, which would sit at 0% interest.
Terrific.
Those mortgages are, sorry about that.
Now, does it also include, you talked about examinations of overcrowded or paying too much rent or dangerous neighborhood. Is there any, I don't know, and if this is an inappropriate question, you can tell me, are there any sort of priority family makeups, like single parent families or something like that, automatically have a different opportunity to get into Habitat for Humanity home?
I would say no.
Okay.
When applications come in, we do place any family with children under the age of 16 at a priority because, of course, we know the generational impact that having a stable home has on children and their futures. So outside of that, under the age, having children under the age of 16, there would be no other priority conditions at this point in time.
So let's get to the construction phase. So I think I remember in the past talking about skills training programs for youth. Like there's an organization called Impact Construction that Choices for Youth here in the city. So do you bring in young people to upgrade their skills to get real hands-on experience versus, say, in the classroom?
Well, we have in the past. So this build is going to work a little bit different. So for this build, we are partnered with Homeworks, who build modular homes here in St. John's. So Homeworks is actually going to be building our home for us and bringing it out to St. John's. Now, in the past, when we have had the traditional builds happening, we have absolutely had programs such as Impact Construction, groups from CNA, things like that have done work on our homes with us.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked because there's nothing quite like actually seeing a project through from start to finish to really get an understanding of what you're doing with your hopeful trade into the future. Erin, anything else you want to tell us this morning?
I don't think so. Like I said earlier, check out our website, www.habitatnl.ca/homeownership. That page has a lot of really great information around the program, around the eligibility requirements, and the expression of interest is located there as well. I would, recommend that anybody check it out. If you have any friends, families, neighbors, coworkers that you think that, that might benefit from this program, certainly let them know. And all of my contact information is there on the website as well. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, thoughts, they can certainly get in contact with me. And the expression of interest is currently going to be open until July 31st.
Appreciate this morning. Good luck and keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you so much, Patty.
You're welcome, Erin. Take care. All right,
okay.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Erin Butler, Habitat for Humanity out in Grand Falls, Windsor. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to the DMV. Mike's got an update on flooding in the Marystown, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's see if we have a better phone line with Brenda on 5. Brenda, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Rough day today. I've been having nothing but trouble since I came back from Alberta. I was up to get my daughter, went up to identify my daughter's body. She was tragically killed, and I had to settle my grandchildren. And as I flew back, I developed problems with my legs. I started swelling really bad, the left one really, really bad. I couldn't get into the hospital right away, so at 11:30 at night, I went to the emerge, and I didn't get seen till about 4 in the morning. And they did blood work and it showed clots, that there could be possibility of clots. So he said, come back, we're going to have to do an ultrasound. Got back, couldn't get an ultrasound done in Buren because the technicians are off. 2 of them are not there. And Dr. McCarthy ordered that it has to be done urgent because the swelling wouldn't go down. So they've been injecting needles in my stomach with blood thinners and medication. I went back to emerge again Monday. Nothing could be done. So Monday night I went back again when Dr. McCarthy was on at 7:30 at night. I got a call on the phone, 9 o'clock Monday night from Clarenville saying that I would have to be in Clarenville for 11:15 Tuesday. That's how much notice they gave me, that I would have to be there. So Dr. McCarty said, I'll write a letter saying that this is urgent and that she has to go in. Now, I'm supposed to gave me another shot of blood thinners. Got into Clarenville. My leg was redder than a lobster. Couldn't put it down, but I had to travel in there. When we have the Buren Peninsula Healthcare Center out here and no technicians. So there's until August, and there's no way that they could leave my leg till August. So, I mean, it's ridiculous that we have the Buren Peninsula Healthcare Center there, no technicians, and you have to travel outside of your community to get an ultrasound done so I don't lose my leg.
I'm sorry to hear about your daughter. Obviously, my condolences. I don't know what the status of the technicians are. Is that the positions aren't filled, or they're both on leave, or what do we happen to know?
One is on holiday and one apparently is off sick.
Okay.
And anyone now that needs an ultrasound has to either go to Clarenville or St. John's until August. Now, where my case was an emergency, Dr. McCartney was right there when the woman called me. In Emerge, I was in Emerge with Dr. McCartney when she called and said, be there for Tuesday morning at 11:15. That's how much notice I had to get. I had to get a letter so I could get a taxi and everything else and all to get it done at my expense because apparently being urgent and everything else, I didn't have much time to get arrangements to get down there, get gas and get down there and get this done. But I made arrangements with R&E Taxi for to take me down and get me down and get me back in the same day. And then Wednesday morning, I had to go over and get injection in my ankle to withdraw all the fluids and everything that had built up in my leg. And stuff came out of my leg that would turn your stomach, yellow, green, purple, everything. The ultrasound showed that there was a big swelling at the bottom part of my ankle, and it had to be removed. And what came out of my ankle would turn your stomach. All the stuff that came, they drained out of it. And now I'm on medication, and I still have to go back regularly. Every 6 hours, I have to pour cold water over my legs to keep the redness out and do these antibiotics and be reassessed in 7 days. Now, to be reassessed in 7 days, it might mean another trip to Clarenville to have another ultrasound. I need to get back to Alberta to get my daughter's body. It was released on Friday, a month after her death because of the investigation into it. I had to get my twin sister to take my daughter's body to the crematorium and try to get everything done with her so that I can get back up there, get her home, to get my daughter home. But now I'm not allowed to travel. But this is ridiculous that I might have to take another trip back to Clarenville again. I mean, what is the point of having the Buren Peninsula Healthcare Center here, a big, brand new, a big hospital, and I have to leave it to go somewhere else?
Well, as you described, there's a reason why the technicians aren't on site. It's probably never wise to have two, if there's only two, for both of them to be off at the same time. So I don't know if they have, people have the ability.
Why can't somebody be called in emergency? Couldn't the person on holiday be called in to do this? Can't they have somebody there just in case? I mean, it's not normal to have both off. But I mean, the point is, to not be able to use my own community. And the worst of it all is, then having to travel with a leg that I couldn't elevate and only made it 10 times worse and swelled up more while I was trying to get in to have an ultrasound. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're building a new hospital for the immigrants. They can do that. They can find funding for that, but they can't find someone to come in when there's an emergency that you have to go outside of your community.
Someone's building a hospital for immigrants?
Well, the facility there was on your news about this place being built for immigrants. Not a hospital, a clinic or something that the immigrants can. It was right there on the news.
I'm not sure how these conversations always make their way back to immigrants, but I'm sorry for your struggles, and I hope the treatments you're getting will be successful. No one wants to live in pain, so I understand. And, you know, you talk about MRI technicians. The wait list for an MRI in this province is extraordinary. We've heard stories where people are waiting up to 2 years to get an MRI. And we can expand and we can add new machines, but unless you have the technology, it's just a piece of equipment sitting on the floor.
What I don't understand is when there's an emergency, why nobody is, you're not able to call somebody to come here to stop the person from having to travel. I mean, if you had seen my leg, it had gone 3 times the normal size that it was, and it was redder than a lobster. I can send you pictures and I can show you. My leg was redder than a lobster and swelled out 3 times it, and then having to travel where I couldn't even elevate it, to go in and get an ultrasound done that I can't get done in my own hospital.
Point taken and heard and understood. Brenda, hope you're going to be okay.
I just want to get back to Alberta and get my daughter. That's all I want to do.
I hope that works out, and I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Take good care, Brenda.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, I suppose we can add to the conversation the new ambulatory hub at the old Costco, Stavanger Drive. They talk about all the services that will be there, and it's probably a very good idea to, you know, refunnel people who don't have true emergencies from emergency rooms to go to a place like an urgent care clinic, and some of the other services there, blood collection, x-rays, apparently MRI sometime next year. The question, like everything else in healthcare, is it's fine to have the services, it's fine to have the equipment, but do we have the people? You know, I think that's a pretty big question. You mentioned MRI. They expanded MRI hours and we're adding another machine here. But unless you have the technologists to operate it, it simply is a piece of equipment. Let's take a break. Ralph, you're next to talk about the DMV. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Ralph, you're on the air.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Motor vehicle registration. Do I have to make an appointment and go in there and get my vehicle registered again for the year?
Apparently so.
Oh, that was 2 weeks ago when you had that man on. He phoned in and he told you that that's what happened. I made to hear back motor vehicle registration now. I said I'll check with you guys.
Last I was told is that yes, you do indeed have to make an appointment. I don't know if anything has changed at this moment in time, but that was, you know, like you rightfully point out, a couple of weeks ago, that was the actual plan at the DMV. I'll tell you what I will do to confirm it, Ralph, is I will check and make sure, and I'll get you the accurate information ASAP. How's that?
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem, Ralph. If anything changes, I will get Dave to call you back and let you know.
Okay, thanks very much.
No problem, Ralph. All the best.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Apparently, it's a bit of a mess in there. I haven't had to go to the DMV in quite a long time. I can't even remember why I was in there last time. Maybe to get a picture for my new license or something. But, yeah, last I heard, it was a by appointment only. So, and that's probably always a pretty good idea. Even when there was the walk-in service available, it could be a pretty long sit-around wait time at the DMV. And I will throw this out there one more time. You know, whether or not the Rothschild report had it, because we do know the Premier's Economic Recovery Team, Moya Green's report had divesting for things like the Department of Motor Vehicles. Let's go to line number 4. Mike, you're on the air.
Hey, morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
Thanks for not leaving me hanging and giving me the opportunity to finish off what I started yesterday. So when I left off yesterday, we were talking about how a single resident in that new subdivision could email directly to the mayor complaints about the ditches in front of her new home. And the mayor forwards that on and says that he completely agrees, and that's when the town goes and reverses everything they had spent the last couple of weeks up here doing, you know, putting in the culverts and the dry ditches and stuff. That all got took out. There was another resident up there complained about a single width driveway, and the town went up and put in a double driveway. So that makes me think that if the town put in the double one, they put in the first one. If they took on the responsibility of doing the second one, they must have been in there some way, shape, or form doing the first one. And if they did it for one would think they'd done it for all. April 30th this year, I went to a public works meeting. And in that meeting, I was personally told by the mayor that he personally doesn't believe that the culvert lowering is going to do anything to benefit my mother's property. Fast forward about a month, 5 weeks later, and I'm at a council meeting, and this is the solution to the problem that they're offering, and we're all sitting there. None of us think it's going to work, but we're expected to sit there and pretend that it is. And I've been through some more meetings since that time, and I've come to discover that it was the mayor himself to put that idea on the table on November 27th at a public works meeting. It was his idea to drop the culvert. And I've also obtained other emails now that shows me that culvert dropping had no intentions of doing anything for houses further up the road. It was done indeed for the flooding on the first two homes on the street. They're two fairly well-respected citizens of the community, so I guess I can see why they're trying to look after them. And it's also the homes that would be most affected by that catch basin that the town put in up above them, basically, and it's headed that way. Now, I spoke to you last Tuesday. And that night, there was a council meeting. And I'd like to set the record straight for anybody that's listening from Marystown today that watched the council meeting that night. What was said on that council meeting that night was not what I said on this program in any way, shape, or form. I don't even consider it a spin. It's that far away from it. It said that after a severe rainstorm, I was on your show complimenting that it worked. And, that it appears to be working. And I definitely never offered no compliments, and I definitely never said that the system was working. It's too soon to tell if the system is working. Everybody knows what type of spring we're having. We haven't had no rain. It'll have to rain for a week now almost to get a mud puddle to ground, and everything else is that dry. It's the furthest thing from what I said. I didn't say it looks like it's a success. And then the town went on to say that they were evaluating and investigating it as a go. They're not taking it for granted yet that it's going to work. But it didn't sound much like it matched our conversation to me at all. So that makes me doubt the intentions of what's going on here. When you got emails that are full of bogus information, and then you can watch a video with more bogus information, it really makes you sit and wonder about the intentions and the integrity of the people that are involved in this and that are making these decisions. Another thing I'd like to cross on this, that subdivision up there, there was a person, either it was the mayor or it was the same name as our mayor, who bid on land up there, one of the lots in that subdivision. That alone makes me question why subdivision regulations weren't followed, but, how is it that you can move motions to sell land, you can move over to a public works committee and put things on the table there and have opinions on things and perhaps vote on stuff there as to what's going to be done with this land, whether that's going to be water and sewer put to it or driveways put to it, that kind of stuff. And, that all affects the value of that property. The one I'm speaking of, that's where all the work was done in the marsh behind it. There was 250 loads of bog went out of there, so they say, and 259 loads of rock went back in there. If you were to put a number at that that's most likely totally unachievable, say $100 a load, that's $50 grand worth of material, $50 grand worth of work. Split between two homes is quite a dollar. So these homes, they sold, or not the homes, sorry, but those building lots, they sold for, like half a market value, like $15,000 a lot, when normally lots in those areas go for about 30. All the bog was removed behind them, so that had to increase the value of that. And I've also seen that the initial plans were not to sell border to border. The back lots weren't intended in the beginning to come all the way up to the lots on the existing street, but that got changed after the fact. Why? But there had to be an opportunity here for the mayor to personally, financially gain if he was to pick up a building lot for what those lots went for. He didn't win it, by the way. He didn't win the bid, but he did bid on it. If it's indeed the same Brian Keating that's listed on the tender sheet.
If it is the mayor, then he shouldn't be in a position to do anything like that. If it's not the same Brian Keating, then, of course, it's a different conversation.
It's a totally different conversation, and I apologize in advance, but it seems odd. How can that not be a conflict? Maybe it's not, but I believe it's up to him to explain how it wouldn't be. And if, I'm reading information that I obtained, so I believe it to be factual. These lots up there, the initial estimates come back on that, I believe, at over $400,000 to complete that subdivision. The second go around come back at over $300,000. And those lots that were sold totaled up to $236,000. So by the time the town coughed the HST to the government on that, because that 236 included that, they only put about $200,000 in the kitty to start building these subdivisions. Or subdivision, sorry. So when you start looking at things when you got $60,000-$70,000 worth of water and sewer materials and all this rock and bog and everything else and roads, boy, it don't sound like it'll be long disappearing.
It's a strange set of strange set of circumstances. Well, I am late for the news, and hopefully you had an opportunity to get all of this on the air and off your chest this morning, Mike.
Certainly appreciate it, Patty. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Take care. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a festival that's in the offing, and Cease wants to talk about Marine Atlantic, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Cecil, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty.
Hello.
Am I there?
You are there.
Okay, because I was listening to this other stuff. Anyway, Patty, thank you for taking my call. I wanted to talk to regarding Marine Atlantic. I went across Canada, and we came back, and they were like 2 days out from crossing over. I called them, and they said no, there was a wait. Well, first I tried the online thing, and that just booted me out. I couldn't get anywhere, so I actually called them. And when I called them, they said, no, you got to have a reservation. It's farther than I wanted to wait. And I said, no, you can't block our highway because it is our highway. And anyway, I finally got put through to customer service because they said that's who you need to talk to. And there was a really nice lady in reservations, because I got bounced back there, who took my information and passed it on to customer service, because otherwise I was getting bounced out. And then this gentleman named JR called me, and he said he was calling me to tell me that it would be August 4th before I could cross over, and this is like the 24th of June. And are you still there?
I'm just listening.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, 24th of June, and he was on radio speaker because we were driving, and me and my wife and 2 grandkids, and then JR found that, when you've got a 9 and a 10-year-old, they speak up. So anyway, he found space, and he got me across, but it was frustrating because I had spent some time doing this, what I call the lottery thing, where you call to see if they've got a space for you, and if you're lucky enough to have a phone and get them at the correct time. So anyway, I just wanted people to know that by calling customer service, and I also told him that I knew they were leaving with full loads because they said they would not wait for people, or you couldn't wait there. You had to have a reservation to get on. So even when we left, we were one of the last cars to get on. There was still room for like maybe 10 to 20 more cars on that vehicle. So Marine Atlantic is not really doing themselves a favor by leaving people behind and not letting people cross, because it is our highway, and we need to be able to get across and not have to wait weeks to get across.
Yeah, I mean, if people have stories of they're going across for whatever, let's say in Halifax this week, but can't get back until like a month from now, that makes it completely unusable for the vast majority of people. The issue of the boats leaving without full capacity, look, I get they're on schedules and they try to adhere to schedules for a variety of reasons, but when we have stories like yours, not leaving with an absolute full load every single time when there are people there to fill the spots, even if it means they leave an hour later or whatever the case may be. I'm not suggesting they obliterate schedules for the sake of, but people that work at Marine Atlantic have sent me notes like this saying, hey, we can talk about 7,000 more passage bookings this year compared to last year, but if we're not taking full loads, there's a good question as to why.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And just for example, because I used to live in BC before I moved back to Newfoundland, and even this time we were in BC, and we were on the Vancouver Island, and we went there, and we just we didn't have a reservation in BC, and we drove up, and she said reservation. I said no, and she said we'll try to get you on, and unfortunately we didn't get on that one, but we were first in line for the next ferry, and that's how they do it out there. That if you're, they do their best to fit you on, and it's something that Marine Atlantic should do, and and they're talking about their number of people, but the thing is, if one good storm and that old schedule, all the reservations are out of whack. So someone's not doing very clear thinking over there at Marine Atlantic.
Yeah, I mean, there was a story on this show, I think it was this week, where a gentleman called and he had very similar concerns, and then someone called down to the ferry on his behalf, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, a ferry he was told he could not get on, they magically found space for him. So there's something more that we're not fully understanding about the load and go and sailing at capacity and all those items. And, people will suggest to me that there's also a conversation possibly, and I don't know if this is a good idea or bad idea, that there would be priority given to people from this province. But of course, then you have to weigh in the economic shot in the arm of the tourists, you have to weigh in the transport of perishable goods, and there's a lot of things that, I'm sure it's a little more complicated than I understand, operations of a ferry service. But if we're not sailing at capacity, there's 100% conversation to be had there. Anything else you'd like to offer while we have you here this morning?
Still with the ferry thing, I'm kind of lost my train of thought there.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So I think that's it. I'll probably remember it as soon as I hang up. But anyway, they've got to do something there to take care of the people of the province, because I totally agree, because that was part of what I was telling the ferry guy. And when he got back to me, because I had given that lady that information, he knew who I was, where I lived, and what time I had left the province. So, they double-checked before they put me on that ferry. We were just really glad that we got across, because, the other thing that I had told him was that, I would owe them accountable. I said, you guys don't want to pay for my accommodations for the two of us and two grandkids, 8 and 10-year-olds for 2 weeks. I mean, that, I don't think you're going to do that. And magically, There was the 3 spaces, and we were on.
What do you know? It's too bad people have to jump through hoops for a spot where there's a spot available. Cecil, I appreciate your time. Thanks for the call this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. All the best.
Okay.
All right, one more before we get to the break. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Andrew Pretty. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. I just thank you for taking my call. Just calling in to tell your listeners about our annual Make and Break Engine Festival in Dildo.
Tell us about it.
This is our 6th annual. We started it back in 2019 with 3 motorboats, and every year it seems like we're getting a bigger and bigger turnout. So it's great. It's growing. And this year's now will take place next Saturday, July 26th. We're starting at 12 noon at the wharf in Dildo, and we're going to form a parade in with the 45th annual Dildo Days flotilla. So there'll be a big crowd around there, and anyone that would like to bring their motorboat along, and it doesn't have to have a make and break in it. It could be any heritage motorboat. You're more than welcome. But it's mostly make and break engine enthusiasts, that put their motorboats in. But anyone is welcome. Just give me a shout at 699-6864 to register. And after, we're having a little meet and greet at the Dildo Boathouse Inn at 3 in the afternoon. For anyone that got any questions or would like to talk about these engines, we'll be only too glad to talk to them.
And how do you get to you to talk about them?
We'll all be just gathered there at 3 o'clock. So I mean, if anyone comes in there, it's just an open forum there. We it's a great place to trade parts, or if you're having trouble with your engine, you could talk to some of us that experience the same troubles or whatever. It's a great day, because I love the fact that we have people from in their early teens right up until like in their 80s and 90s. It's a great mixture of people, and it's a great group of people, and it's really grown the past 6 years.
Sounds like a good opportunity for the enthusiasts.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So, like I say, if anyone would like to bring their boat, or if you have any more information from us or something, you can call us 699-6864.
Good man. Appreciate the time, Andrew. Good luck with it. Let me know how it goes.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome, sir. All the best. Here we go. Bye-bye. The Make and Break Festival. I love that. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line 3. Adam, you're on the air.
Morning, Paddy. How are you?
Doing okay. I'll be better at 12 o'clock when I get out into the sunshine.
Yeah. Well, it's just starting to get to the point now where it's a bit too hot for my liking.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily built for the heat either, but sitting under the fluorescent lights gets a bit stale come 11:30.
Yeah, I'd say. I just wanted to start by expressing some gratitude and thanks to the crews fighting the forest fire over there in Chance Harbour across the bay from us. They're doing a fantastic job of keeping it as under control as they can. I can see the smoke from here, and then there is a noticeable difference just from seeing that. I saw a couple of videos yesterday of the water bombers diving into the bay there to pick up some water. I mean, those guys just got nerves of steel.
Yeah, to see the precision work they do. And I remember the day that there was a fire at Kent Mount Terrace, and I took the opportunity to watch the water bombers in action. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's incredible. I guess I never really saw them up close or, a close-up video or anything of what they're doing before. I saw that video yesterday, and it is amazing. I want to call in to talk a bit more about the whole Crown Lands thing. Seems like the conversation has kind of gone a bit stale with the government ever since they made those few changes to the legislation in the fall. It seems to me that all of the things that they announced in those changes to the legislation that would be an actual benefit to the people of the province have just fallen to the wayside. And the only thing that I hear that they're making any strides towards implementing is these 3 regional appeal boards. There's one for Eastern, one for Central, one for Western and Labrador. And each one of those boards have 4 members on it. I saw them post job positions for people to apply to fill those positions on those appeal boards. And in my opinion, the only thing that they're moving forward here is something that they can use to validate their stance on taking people's land away from them, because these 4 regional appeal boards, they're not going to be able to go against legislation. They're not going to be able to look at somebody's individual situation and say, that's unethical or that's immoral and that's not right, and they've lived there for 40, 50 years and they should be able to get. They're not going to be able to do that because they're not going to be above the law. They're not going to be able to make a decision that is outside of what the legislation dictates. So all is really happening there is the government is putting something in place so that people can get word that they're losing title to their land, approach one of these appeal boards to try to get it sorted out. But the appeal boards are just going to be able to say, based on legislation, the government hasn't done anything wrong, so I'm sorry, but you lose your appeal as well.
Yeah, they just simply don't have any authority.
Yeah, exactly. It'll just further cement in what the government is doing. And the issue is not that the people of this province don't have an avenue to go and make an appeal to the government's decision. The issue is that the legislation makes it perfectly allowable for the government to step up and take people's land from them the way that they have been and the way that they're going to continue to do with the legislation as it is now.
Yeah, unless it changes in the House of Assembly, nothing really changes, period. You can change appeal processes up and down the line. It doesn't matter. It's simply just an exercise in futility. Yeah,
and I mean, I'd like to just go back in time if we can. If you look at Newfoundland 500, 400 years ago, even 200 years ago, I feel like everybody in the government is looking at this problem as it stands today, but 200 or 300 years ago, we didn't have airplanes, we didn't have internet, we didn't have email. So the people who were living here were dealing with the British government. So they're leaning, the current government is leaning in on these crown grants of title. If you've got one from the British government, you can bring that forward or whatever. But that's nonsense. There could be plenty of those that exist that nobody even knows about, because it's not like it's in a digital record somewhere. It's not like somebody could email a crown grant years ago. I mean, this was all stuff that was, you had to send paperwork in a sailing ship across the North Atlantic Ocean to the UK, and then they would review it and send back documentation to say, yes, you're, I mean, there's a parcel of land in Plate Cove, where I'm from, that 2 years ago, the government was maintaining the position that it was Crown land, and then just by chance, completely by chance, the lawyer, Greg French from Clarendon, was in the Howley building, the government archives, and he was digging through a bunch of paperwork, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with Crown lands, I'm pretty sure. It was a completely unrelated case, and he just stumbled across the document from my great-great-uncle, which was a Crown grant of title from Queen Victoria dated 1902. So I didn't know that existed. None of my family knew it existed. Nobody in the Crown land division of our government knew that existed. It was just lost in a filing cabinet in the Howley building. So he sent a copy of that to the Crown land division, and they didn't even respond to him. They just, if you went on the Crown land atlas map the next day, that parcel of land is now showing up as being private land in Plate Cove. So how many other pieces of paper are like that were either lost, burned in the Great Fire in St. John's, or are just lost to the archives and nobody even knows that they exist? So, I mean, the government in the future, or could have already, taken families to court, taken families' land title, and there could be a piece of paper in a filing cabinet in the Howley building that says that that family legally owns that land. And now the government has spent all kinds of taxpayers' money to take that family to court and take their land from them and taken a whole bunch of money from that family, and it was all illegal for them to do that.
The one question that always comes to my mind is, to what end? What's the goal here for the government? I mean, we're not talking about people who are willfully trying to bamboozle others, municipalities and or the province, to take something that's not theirs. 99.9% of the time, it's very fundamental transfers and decades of proof. And I don't know what the government's trying to achieve here. Like, if it's simply about money, then it's a funny way to go about things. When people have less money in their pocket, is actually bad for the government. It's worse for the individual, but it's also bad for the government. So I just don't understand why this isn't a little bit more fundamentally applied. Anyway, like most things that I don't understand that governments do. Adam, you can wrap it up here before I get to the news.
Yeah, so on that note, how, it's not like people are trying to bamboozle the government or bamboozle other people or anything. Conversation with somebody in Crown Land probably 3 years ago, and they were trying to explain to me that the reason why they're doing it the way that they're doing it is, there are people who are illegally claiming ownership of land for no other reason than for personal financial gain. And he knew of a case where somebody was moving to Newfoundland from the mainland, and they were looking at buying a piece of land, and a guy said, yes, I own this piece of land here, so if you want to buy it from me, then you can buy it, and then you can build a house on it. And then when it all came down at the end of the day, the guy here in Newfoundland was actually just being malevolent and was trying to take this person for their money. So the person from the mainland did actually end up paying the guy from Newfoundland, and he had no right to sell the land. So then he was saying, the guy from Crown Land that I was talking to was saying that, we can't have that. And so I asked him, what happened to the guy here in Newfoundland who illegally sold that land? And his answer was nothing. So it comes down to people who are actually doing something wrong. Everywhere, the person from the mainland should have done their due diligence. They should have known better. They should have contacted the government. So the people who are actually doing
Adam, the connection has gone completely wonky. We can't hear you any longer, so we'll leave it there for today. Maybe next time, if you have a landline available, so we have a clear connection with you, that'd be great. Appreciate your time this morning.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
You're welcome, Adam. Bye-bye. Yeah, I just couldn't hear it any longer. So let's take a break for the news. When we come back, lots of time for you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Darren. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I was calling about the heat pump rebates, the oil to electric heat pump rebates.
Yep.
I qualified for getting my heat pump replaced, and I went through and got a contractor to come in and do the heat pump replacement, but they did not do the job properly. They didn't, and basically left me with a heat pump that I cannot use. Things like it's sitting on cinder blocks instead of sitting on ductwork and being tied back into my air returns from my old furnace. They've used the wrong electrical breakers. It's supposed to be 60 amp. They've only put in 40 and 50 amp breakers. The Freon lines, they're not insulated properly. The condensate line for the condensate from the air conditioner, that's pinched off, needs to be redone. There's just all kinds of issues. Now, I've also heard of others in my area and neighborhood that also have had similar stories and seen one or two in the same situation with work not being done properly. And when I called the Take Charge program, they've basically said they take no responsibility whatsoever. Once the contractor says the job is done, they pay out. I wasn't asked if the job was completed. I wasn't asked for pictures from myself, so I don't know how they've proven that they've done the job properly to get paid out. Now, I know there's other people that are going through the same situation with not being able to use their heat pumps now. And people are just I've heard how many people are getting in on the program to make all kinds of money. It doesn't cost $22,000 to do a heat pump if you're hiring a contractor and paying out of pocket. It should never cost that much. But the contractors now are just taking advantage of the government to get as much money as possible. And every channel I've gone through basically says there's nothing they're going to do. They're not going to help me. The government's not going to help me. The government takes no responsibility. I tried to tell the government to not pay them because I wanted the work completed. And they said, nope, once the contractor says they've done the job, that's good enough for them. Is there...
I was just going to ask...
any avenue you know of that would help out?
Possibly. So when you go through Take Charge, of course, that's at the utility, which I don't know how much authority the government has over that decision, but checks and balances for rebate checks should be part of it. I mean, work has to be done, not because I say it's done as a contractor, because it's actually done. And I don't know if that means, independent inspector that works for Take Charge to make sure that the money going out the door is for work that's been completed and completed properly. So I'll put that out there. So you say you went through a variety of channels. Does that include the Department of Digital Services, which where all these consumer complaints can be filed officially with the province? Things like the Better Business Bureau, because there's nothing quite like a black eye on a company to put them back in their place.
I haven't gone to the Better Business Bureau. I went to the Department of Climate Change as well, was the other avenue I went to. I was told somebody, if you called this Department of Climate Change, that they would actually send out an auditor to come inspect the work, but then when I called them, they said they don't do any of that. So then I wasn't sure who else to go to. So.
Yeah, the Department of Digital Government, that's the home for consumer affairs. So there's a formal complaint opportunity there. Actually attach it to the Better Business Bureau complaints as well, because I think people are becoming, a bit more cautious when trying to select companies to do business with and looking for referrals or looking for reputation and are looking for complaints that have been officially launched. So I would do both those things.
Yeah. Like I said, too, the contractors that I've had to come in, and I've had another contractor come in afterwards. The first one has told me that's going to be $12,000 just in repairs alone. And if you're qualifying for the home rebate, obviously you can't afford to be spending that kind of money anyways, because it's a complete full installation that they need to do, right? If they're putting their name on it, a new contractor anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that went with some of these big rebate programs that were out there. Number one, I'm pleased enough with the company that I did business with, but all of a sudden, a job, and I'll just use round numbers, all of a sudden a job that cost $10,000, all of a sudden it costs $20,000. And those types of things are, I think, highly questionable. But work not being done or being done in a shoddy fashion, I'd do the two things that I mentioned, and let's see if that gets any traction.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me know how it works out.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. I'm sorry to hear this happened. All right, take care. Yeah. That's just dreadful, right? Anyway, before we get to the break, let's get a bouquet on line 4. Gary, you're on the air.
Morning, Paddy Daly. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
My name's Gary Collins.
Welcome.
I'm a writer. I've written a number of books. And
yes.
My reason for calling is to thank the people of this province for making 17 of my books bestsellers. And the last one I put on the shelves just recently out is called The Lucky 7, and it's doing extremely well. And it's only because the people of this province buy my work that I can say that. So I thought it was fitting after 17 years to call in and thank the people of this province for buying my book. And for me, it's if it weren't for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, my first book, I guess, would be my last. But it done really well, and I just wanted to thank the people. And the other thing I want to mention is your previous caller mentioned thanks to the firefighters. They are doing an extremely well job for sure. I'm on the north side of Bonavista Bay. We recently had a fire here, and the bombers came just like magic, and they took care of it. And I know the one on the south side of Bonavista Bay is, I think, out of control. We can actually see the smoke from here. And I'd just like to add that I've been in the forest for 69 years. in the forest business. We're still into mechanical harvesting now, and the forest is ready to explode in central Newfoundland. And I'm sorry that your forecast that I just heard didn't announce rain for this area.
There's a lot of places, especially those that are experiencing wildfires now, that could use some rain. It is so dry out there that I think the vast majority of the province, now there's different ratings for extreme all the way to high and very high, those types of things. But boy, oh boy, I don't think there's many parts of the province that don't have dry conditions.
No, as I say, I'm in the forest on a daily basis. Well, it's shut all mechanical harvesting in central Newfoundland has been shut down, and rightly so. It's places where you walk that's supposed to be damp that's not damp, and the underlying brush is just deadly, ready for a fire. Even a spark from an excavator against a rock could cause a fire, which is why it's shut down, and rightly so. So I just mentioned that as an aside because people say that I'm a writer, and I say also I'm a logger because I started in 1969, so still doing that thing. But I just felt today that I talked to Flanker Press, and they're going to do the third reprint for this book in a short time. And I thought it was only fitting for me to call in and thank the people of this province, Newfoundland and Labrador, for making that possible.
Well, I'm glad it's working out as well as it is, Gary. And it's always been a pleasure to have you on the show to talk about your books.
Yeah, I don't. This is my first time calling you. I think the last time I was on Open Line was with Bill Road as well.
Oh, I thought we talked about Lucky 17 on this show.
Lucky 7.
Or Lucky 7, pardon me. I thought we had that conversation on this program. Dave Williams is nodding along too, because I know who you are. I know your work.
I would think you've been talking to Marco about the Lucky 7, Marco Cranford.
Possibly so, because I remember talking about the book. Yes.
Yeah, and I talked to an old fellow the other day, and he said, well, I don't know about buying your book, old man. He said, because we all know there's a happy ending, eh? I said, well, you got to read between the lines to find out why it's an happy ending. It doesn't just happen. It was the fortitude of those men and the leadership and the honest to God stick to it. That's what kept them alive. I'm pretty sure that if this had happened later in the season, like November or something, I don't think the result would have been the same, because the conditions were terrible, but they weren't freezing cold per se as would be like in November month. But it was those men. They're all heroes. I mean, Eugene Carter was the captain of the boat, and the captain is usually the leader, and he is. He's a very unassuming man and thinks before he reacts. He thinks before he even talks. So he was good at that. But all of the crew, they all worked as a team. And there were some issues, like I found in the books, and a lot of things that I wouldn't write about. It wasn't necessary. But I just thank God they're alive. And it's only just a little while ago on July the 20th when they actually came ashore. They were rescued on the 19th. And this province would have been mourning a year of a different scenario now if things had turned out different, and the leadership wasn't as good as it was.
I'm glad to hear all of that, Gary, and I appreciate making time for the show. And if we haven't spoken in the past, I hope we speak in the future.
I will. So I'll keep that in mind, and I'm not going to placate you by saying that I listen every day. I don't. I'm usually on the go, but whenever I'm in the car, VOCM radio's on, and you should tell the government that here by Newfoundland we don't get VOCM radio in the house. The only way I can listen to you here in the town is on TV.
Well, I appreciate when you do tune in, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Paddy.
Thanks,
Have
Gary.
a good rest of the day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Adam Strong. You're on the air.
Hi there. How's it going?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm calling to let your listeners know about the Logie Bay Middle Cove Outer Cove Museum. We're looking for some information on the Logie Bay Lump, the Sugarloaf Ski Hill.
What kind of stuff are you looking for? Because I can tell you, I can regale you with my trip to the emergency room with a bruised tailbone from the lump.
Wow. Yeah, no, we're looking for any sorts of information, really. We're basically we're setting out basically. If you need to contact us, let us know. But we're looking for interviews and stuff like that. Anything people remember about the Lump. We're updating our sports exhibit at the end of this season, so we're just looking for any information that could help with that.
It sounds great. I mean, I would imagine one of the first memories most people would have, especially if this was your first ski hill experience, is just how awkward it was to try to latch onto the J-bar to get hauled back up the hill.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you talk about interviews, are you talking about interviews that were done in the media that might be in the archives at NTV or CBC, or interviews on this station? Is that what you're looking for?
We're mostly looking for if people want to come in and do a quick interview with us.
See.
Just nothing that's broadcasted or anything, but it would stay in our archive here. Or, I mean, if you also just want to shoot us an email or something like that, any information we can get would be absolutely excellent.
So when you talk about compiling these interviews, how's that going to look? Is there going to be a video bank, or you're going to try to put up some boards pertaining to some individual stories or pictures of the hill? How's it going to look?
Yeah, so typically it can really depend on what information we get. We probably won't be taking many videos just with regards to the technological limitations we have, but a lot of the times we're probably going to be putting up some boards, maybe some quotes if people are okay with that. We're basically just trying to rejig the exhibit to make it maybe also some photos of the Lump if anyone's got some good photos out there. Basically just make it look a little bit more local oriented, you know?
Yeah, and obviously this has nothing to do with me, but I'm pretty sure there's a photo of me and some of my pals at the Lump kicking around somewhere, maybe even at my mother's. Just out of curiosity now, you've got me thinking about having a peek around to see if I can find that.
By all means, drop down, you know, give it, shoot it down to us, and I mean, if you want to come by, we're open 7 days a week. But either way, you know, find that photo, give us a call, you know.
For sure. So, what else is in this museum?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. What was that?
So, what else is actually in? I think you described it as a museum. So, what's in there beyond the hopeful Logie Bay Lump exhibit?
Yeah, so we actually got plenty of stuff. We're mostly focusing on kind of the town history of Logie Bay, Middle Cove, and Outer Cove. We got plenty of exhibits, like we got an agriculture exhibit and some faith exhibits with regards to the kind of Roman Catholic history, as well as the new Sikh society. Got some lifestyles, you know, set it up like a little living room and a kitchen, you know, kind of vibe. We have a nice memorial on the Ocean Ranger as well, and some stuff about the regatta and how we held that beautiful record for about 80 years.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, the famous stories coming from your neck of the woods and the rowing accomplishments down at Kitty Vitty. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised that's included. All right, so if folks want to have to schedule an appointment to come in for an interview or drop off memorabilia, what do you want people to know?
Anything they really want to do. I mean, people can drop off anything they want. Just come down within our opening hours, which you can find on Google. But most of all, we're 9 to 5, except for on Fridays, which we're 12 to 8. Or shoot us an email at museum@lbmcoc.ca, or give us a call. Right, 709-726-5272.
What do you do on behalf of the town?
I'm a museum assistant down here, so okay. I basically fill out forms and help guide people through the tours and all that stuff. But we're trying to refurbish the museum a little bit and help people appreciate the history a little bit better.
Well, the history of the Lump will be a nice addition. I appreciate the time, Adam. Hopefully, you get everything you need here: memorabilia, photos, interviews, whatever the case may be.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having us on.
Pleasure to do it. Thanks, Adam.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that's a great exercise. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. And yes, we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.